name's Mrs. Evans and I'm going to be doing a very exciting lesson with you children today. But before I do, I want to tell you about Freddie. Freddie in your class told me something that happened to him and he got a little bit upset about it. I'm sure he won't mind me telling you. But it was a very hot summer's day when this happened. And Freddie said he was eating an ice lolly. It was a lovely orange ice lolly, very tasty. And he popped it on the table outside, went inside, and when he came out, the ice lolly had changed from being a hard, solid ice lolly into a liquid where it was all runny a bit and it looked a bit like orange juice. And Freddie was very upset and he was confused. He didn't know what had happened to his ice lolly. So I wondered, does any of you know what happened to Freddie's ice lolly? That's right, it had melted. The ice lolly had changed from a solid to a liquid and it had become all runny. But why had this happened? What had happened to the ice lolly? That's right, the hot sun, the heat from the hot sun had melted the ice lolly. And that's why Freddie had become a little bit upset. But then he realised that sometimes the heat melts ice. Now, that leads me on to what we're going to learn about today. We're going to do a little bit of an experiment using ice and we're going to talk about the changes that happen to ice. Now, before we start our experiment, I want to tell you a little story about a polar bear. Now, this polar bear lives in the North Pole, and if you look on our map over here, you can see the North Pole is at the very top of the map, and here, that's where we are in the United Kingdom. So there's the North Pole, and it's very cold. Can anyone find the word cold on my word board? What does cold begin with? That's right, there's cold. It's very cold and very icy. Now, here's the little polar bear, and one day his daddy said, would you like to come on an adventure with me and we will go out and hunt for food? And the little polar bear said, yes please daddy, yes please. So off they went on their adventure and it became night time. Now the daddy polar bear said, we need to build a little bed behind a big lump of ice like that. Does anybody know why polar bear suggested that? That's right, it's to stop the wind blowing onto the polar bears and to keep them nice and cosy and warm. So there's the polar bear, and imagine daddy polar bears there, and they've got their big lump of ice keeping them safe from the wind. Now what happened was, as baby polar bear was sleeping, the ice cracked and baby polar bear started drifting away from daddy polar bear, but he didn't realise he was still fast asleep, and he carried on floating. But as he did, the lump of ice he was on was getting smaller and smaller, and so was his lump of ice that he was being protected from the wind. And when he woke up, he realised there was not much ice left, and he looked up into the sky and it was bright blue and the sun was shining and he felt warm. Does anybody know what was happening to baby polar bear's ice? That's right, it was melting. The hot sun was making the ice melt and get smaller and smaller. Well, baby bear was so worried, he luckily found a barrel to balance on whilst he was floating down the sea. And when he arrived at a very hot place, he met an elephant. "Hello. Oh, please help me, I don't know where I am." "Well, you're in the jungle." "Oh, but I live in the cold North Pole. This is so far away." "Don't worry, I know somebody who will help you," said the elephant, "but we have to climb very high to find him." And off they went. They climbed and climbed and climbed the mountain to find the very wise parrot who was going to help the little polar bear get back home. "Hello. Hello, please can you help me?" the little polar bear said shyly. "I need to get back home. An elephant said you could help me." "Yes, I know somebody who will be able to take you back home. Meet me but by the sea in the morning," said the parrot, and off he flew. An elephant said to little polar bear, "You better get some sleep now before your big adventure back to your homeland." I'm going to leave the story there for now, and we'll finish that off at the end of the day. And what I want to explain to you now is the activities that you're going to be doing. So today, everybody is going to be doing this activity here, and it's got 2 big lumps of ice. You will have some cold water and some hot water, and you're going to pour the hot water over one lump of ice and the cold water over the other lump of ice. And you're going to see what happens to the ice. What changes will happen. Will something happen quicker to one block of ice than the other? And why? So we'll be having lots of discussion, and you will be filling in, you'll be working with me, and we'll be filling in one of these little cards. You'll put your name, you will write down or draw what you think will happen, and then you will write or draw what has happened there, and then we're going to stick it onto the board at the front of the classroom. So, blue group, you will be working on this activity with me first of all. Now, the independent activities, we've got so many exciting activities. So over here, you've got one more and one less. Now, we've got lots of number sentences on black cards, so you can work those out yourselves using all these resources here. You can also make up some of your own. So I know you've been doing one more and one less in your last week, so let's see how well you can do with those. Over here, our reading activity. Can you find the tricky words under the flower and have a go at reading them? Some of the tricky words are hard and some are easy, so see which ones you can read. And here we've got get a pom-pom on a peg, dip it in white paint, and can you have a go at making your polar bear? And then can you have a go at writing the word polar bear? And for your writing activity, you've got some booklets on your tables. You can have a go at writing the story, The Little Polar Bear. Now you don't know what happens at the end, so perhaps you could make up your own ending. So I would like lots of lovely pictures in your book. You can stick some of the pictures there if you want to, and have a go at writing some sentences. Now outside, Mrs. Port is going to be working with small groups. Now what we've got outside, we've got bricks where you can practice stepping over the ice. We've got ice that's got dinosaurs and Arctic animals in, and you've got to try and excavate those. That means dig out the animals. And then there's a big ball of ice, and I want you to keep going back, taking photographs with the iPads and see what's happening to the ice, and Mrs. Port's going to be asking you lots of questions about that. Okay? Right, well, I'll see you back in a minute. I want blue group first, and then we'll see what activities you've been up to. Hello, welcome back everybody. I hope you've been having lots of fun exploring the activities in your classroom. I hope you've done lots of learning and lots of exploring, and now just spend a couple of seconds telling each other what you've done today and what you've learned. Okay, so we're now going to discuss the activity that you've all had to go at, the experiment that involves ice, hot water and cold water. You all predicted what would happen when you added the cold water and the hot water. You had a guess at what would happen to the ice. So you wrote it down there, and then you poured the hot water and cold water over to see what happened. So Felix, could you first of all pour the cold water over one of the ice blocks, all over it? Thank you. What's happened to the ice? Has anything happened to the ice?
It's melting.
Okay, do you think it's got smaller or stayed the same?
Same.
Okay, now, do you think hot water will be better at melting the ice or not better?
Not better.
Okay, let's try it. So pour the hot water, it's very hot, so be careful, all over the ice. Oh, that's really melted the snow around as well, and it's made a big dent in that bit of ice. Felix,
yeah.
Which is the best at melting the ice, the hot water or the cold water? Which is the smallest ice?
That one.
Which is the smallest one?
That one.
This one, isn't it? So
Mum,
it
I
shows...
did it.
No, sit down. It shows that hot water is the best at melting the ice, but does anybody know why? That's right, because hot water has lots of heat, so melts the ice, whereas the cold water didn't melt the ice as much because ice likes to be kept in the freezer where it's cold and it stays solid. So I'm going to finish off by telling the end of my story, where we left with Polar Bear and Elephant had met up with the wise parrot, the clever little parrot, didn't he? So Felix, sit down and listen. So they found him the next morning by the sea, and Parrot said, I have brought a special visitor to help little baby polar bear get back to his homeland in the North Pole. Well, Elephant was a little bit sad because he had made friends with little polar bear, but he knew he had to go back home. So he met Killer Whale. Killer Whale was the best at navigating the sea. That means getting through the sea, and he knows his way around. So Killer Whale and Polar Bear swam all the way through the sea, and Polar Bear felt that the temperature of the sea was getting hotter and colder and colder, and the sky was getting whiter and whiter, and there wasn't any sun. And soon he saw big ice mountains and lots of snow, and he knew he was nearly home because it was so cold and all that ice and snow were there. And he saw his daddy, and he was so excited that he ran to his daddy and gave him a big hug. He was so happy to be home. The end. Well, I hope you've all learnt a lot about melting, and I hope you've had a lovely time. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.